Welcome into our Atlanta studio, everybody. The draft is now in the books. We are here to evaluate what happened, and a lot did. I'm Matt Weiner. Good to have you with us. Former Hawks general manager Wes Wilcox right there. Auburn head coach Bruce Pearl here on the desk, and across the way, Seth Davis, who's been covering college basketball for most of his life, and Sam Mitchell, a longtime NBA head coach, with us here as well. We'll get their thoughts in just a moment. The draft began with zero drama and a surprising amount of emotion when, to no one's surprise, Adam Silver called Zion Williamson's name number one to the New Orleans Pelicans. Williamson is the first player born this century to be drafted in the NBA. That'll make you feel old. Although his physical gifts suggest he may actually come from sometime in the future. The National Player of the Year averaged nearly 23, often jaw-dropping points a game in his lone season at Duke. After the pick went official, he spoke to our Jared Greenberg.
Well, it seems like the only person in the world that was shocked about Zion going first was Zion himself. Seems pretty emotional for you, Zion. What's going through your mind right now?
A lot. You know, you dream about these things, and you work hard for the chance it'll happen. And to hear my name called number one, couldn't ask for much more than that.
Zion, to have your mom up there with you, what does this mean to your family?
It means everything, especially having my mom up there. She was with me from day one. She was the one who pushed me past limits that I didn't even think I could reach. So, just having her up there just meant the world to me.
Zion, obviously you're excited, your family's excited. Can you feel it all the way up here in Brooklyn, how excited they are in New Orleans to have you become the new face of the franchise?
Yeah, I feel like they're excited, and I'm just as excited that I finally get to go do what I love as a job, and I'm just ready to work.
How much of an impact do you expect to have right away, particularly with all these expectations that have nothing to do with you, but all seem to be on your shoulders?
I don't worry about it. It's not pressure when you're playing the game you love, so you just go out there and you just hoop.
Whether he was willing to say it out loud or think it to himself, Zion Williamson is known for a long time. He was going to be the number one overall pick in the draft. That reaction was fascinating, and we tend to discuss these prospects in fairly clinical, analytical sort of terms. This is a great reminder of what these moments mean to these kids.
It speaks volumes of what these kids go through, how hard they work. In an interview, he talked about his mom. He said his mom made sacrifices so that he could live his dream. And I think that's where he gets caught up in all the emotions. I'm excited to see him play at the next level because obviously being an Auburn coach, Charles Barkley is our guy. And, you know, Charles came into the league and physically took over and dominated, was so bouncy for such a large man. And Zion is the same way, except I think he's quicker. I think he's faster. I think he can guard multiple positions. I think he's just going to be as good as everybody says he is.
I mean, we get to see the culture that that New Orleans gets to build here. You know, a person of this character, they're not only reshaping the roster, but they're reshaping their environment. And when you look to the roster, you start to wonder, right? With the move they made later in the night, they picked up another $12 million in room. New Orleans is looking at $33 million in cap room, and they got starting positions in Lonzo, Drew, Brandon Ingram, Zion. They got a big-time hole there at the starting center position. You're starting to wonder, can Zion Williamson, with that character, that culture, start recruiting, start being a draw for free agents like Brooke Lopez and Al Horford, or maybe Vucevic, Dwayne Dedmon? You just wonder if he might not be the type of player that already is going to want other players to come join and play with him.
It's a remarkable turnaround in just a couple of months' time, considering what the Pelicans were facing when Anthony Davis announced his intention to leave either via trade or eventually via free agency. Let's get thoughts from Seth and Sam on Zion Williamson, the player. Exactly how good or great are we talking about as an NBA player?
Well, the clear number one pick, we've known that for a long time, and the guys commenting on Zion's reaction, I think that speaks, Sam, to why you and I and so many people believe that he will be a great success at the next level. You can see the physical abilities, but it's the passion that he plays with, how much all this means to him, the fact that he could react. Hard to say that he was surprised, but he was clearly overwhelmed by hearing his name get called. You know, some guys, they make a lot of money and they want to figure out how to spend it. This guy is going to make a lot of money and figure out how to earn it. And I think he's going to go to New Orleans with a great sense of purpose for what he's going to be able to do as teammates and what he can do for that franchise in that great city.
And Seth, I agree with you. The thing that people don't understand about Zion, and I had the pleasure to coach him for 2 years in the summer between his 11th grade and 12th grade year, and I know his stepdad, Lee, and being around Zion, he said it. He's an incredible human being, first of all. He is just, what you see is what you get. And then he loves basketball. It's not about anything, the fame and the Twitter and all the followers. It's about playing the game. And what people don't understand, look at his numbers at Duke. This kid averaged almost 23 points a game on 13 shots. When I coached himself, we were playing against the best players in the world at his age. He shot 77% from the field in 3 games. And people say, well, those are all dunks and layups. Nope. Jumpers, getting to the basket. Yeah, a lot of them were dunks. But the thing about him is people don't understand his vision. He can pass the basketball. He's a willing passer. And whatever you ask him to do, he's going to do. And I know Coach Gentry, he's going to love this kid because he's coachable. And you know, any coach can tell you this. If you can coach your most talented players, then you got something because everybody else just going to fall in line. If you can get on Zion and push him, and he likes to be pushed, he want to be coached hard. If you can coach him hard, everybody's going to fall in line. And once that happens, the sky's the limit because this kid's talent is off the chart. I'm going to say one last thing. Doug West and I, when we drafted Kevin Garnett in Minnesota, after the first practice, we turned and looked at each other and said, one day we're going to say we played with a Hall of Famer. It's going to be the same reaction in New Orleans after the first practice. Drew Holiday and some of those other veteran players going to turn around and say, if this kid stays healthy, we're going to be able to say we played with a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, Matt, it's a fine line between, being willing to own the responsibility that he now has and not being caught up in all the ancillary distractions. I think Zion Williamson has been walking that line pretty well so far. I think he'll continue to walk it.
He's handled the attention amazingly well. The front office is going to love the pick. The ticket office already loves the pick, and there's no reason to think that the basketball folks won't love it as well as his career moves forward. Of course, the Pelicans held a lot of cards coming into the draft, starting, of course, with Zion. And new president David Griffin, NBA TV alum, was dealing. He moved off the 4th pick he picked up from the Lakers in the Anthony Davis trade, sending it to the Hawks for the 8th and 17th picks. And we'll go through some of these picks along the way. The Hawks used that 4th pick overall on 3-and-D wing De'Andre Hunter, who shined for Virginia in the national championship game, including knocking down 4 threes in 5 attempts. Hunter only worked out for the Hawks in the pre-draft process and somehow miraculously landed in Atlanta. He spoke with Jared.
We talked yesterday about being a 3-and-D guy. Yeah. Well, the Hawks seem to be the perfect system for that because they're trying to build a lineup that always features 3-point shooters. Do you feel like you fit exactly what they're trying to do in Atlanta?
I think so. With the guys they have on the wing, the guys that can shoot it, John Collins down there, we're going to have a great team, great young team, and I'm just really excited to be joining them.
Yeah, so John Collins on the front line, but a guy who's a Rookie of the Year finalist, Trae Young, in the backcourt, who's one of the most electrifying players in the league. You're smiling already.
Yeah.
Are you excited to play with him?
Yeah, he's a great player. I've been watching him since college. He's really electric. He can do a lot of everything. He can really pass. I feel like that's an underrated part of his game, and I'm just excited to be a part of that organization and being excited to play with the young guys.
You know, that 3-and-D label gets tossed around a lot, maybe too often in this day and age, but this guy personifies it. I mean, it's hard to not use it with him.
Matt, I was actually going to go the other way and say I think he's more than just a 3-and-D guy. I really do. First of all, when you play for Tony Bennett, you're playing for one of the best defensive coaches in basketball. This guy can guard any position. He can get down in the stance and he can keep guards out of the lane. He can make plays off the ball. I think he's going to be a pretty good slasher taking the ball to the basket. And in high school, he wasn't a big-time three-point shooter. He became a really good three-point shooter, shot 44% this past season. So I think he was the 4th best player taking the draft. I think the move that Atlanta made to get the guy they want was a really smart move. And he holds the weight. He's 6'7", 2.25. Okay, so when we talk about guys that can play the 4, he's kind of big in the can. And he carries that around a little bit. He can hit you, and you're going to move. I just think he's got great potential. to potentially be an NBA All-Star someday.
Big in the can, by the way, a technical term coaches use sometimes, and generally a positive thing for NBA players.
Oh, yeah, no, and Coach hit on it. I love the aggressive move here by Atlanta. When you look at their core, Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, John Collins, mostly offensive players, and they knew as a franchise they needed to improve, or they need to improve, on the defensive end of the floor. And the other thing here, John Collins has been developed as both positions, both power forward and center. And at this size and length and versatility, they're going to be able to move DeAndre all over the court, potentially 2, 3. He'll play some at 4. I think this is a terrific fit for the roster. We've talked about DeAndre Hunter as a player. He is all of what we've said. And I love the fact, moving forward, they have 4 players with a very clear, bright future.
And he's got a ring.
And he's got a ring.
And he's got a ring. He knows how to win championships.
Yeah, nearly 44% from three-point range, a national defensive player of the year in ideal size as a wing player in the NBA. That was the 4th pick. Going back to the top, the Grizzlies traded away Mike Conley before the draft, then, as expected, picked his replacement, Murray State All-American Ja Morant, with the number 2 selection. Morant became the first player to average 20 points and 10 assists since the NCAA began tracking assists, and he goes to the Memphis Grizzlies.
Ja, it's official. You're the number 2 pick in the draft. It seemed like you got a bit emotional back there. What does this mean tonight to you?
It means a lot. Something I worked for most of my life, and I'm able to accomplish that dream tonight. And I'm very emotional right now, trying not to choke up as we speak, but I'm just excited.
Ja, you told us yesterday that your father had a purpose for always challenging you and telling you you couldn't do things. What does it mean tonight to turn to him and watch him see this tonight, that you're the number 2 pick in the draft?
Honestly, all I can tell him is thank you. But knowing him right now, he probably, all right, you here, but you still ain't done nothing yet. So I think we both know I have a lot more work to do and still got to prove myself in the NBA.
Well, the Memphis Grizzlies made a bold statement yesterday by trading away the franchise's all-time leading scorer, Mike Conley. And they're handing the keys to you. You ready for that?
I think so. Obviously, I have a lot of some big shoes to fill. With Conley, he's a great player. I wish him the best, but you got to turn the page for me, put in the work, and be ready to play for the Grizzlies.
Yeah, that's a double dose of pressure there, Sam. It's not enough to be picked 2nd overall in the NBA draft as a sophomore coming out of Murray State. You're going to trade away one of the great players in the history of that franchise and that point guard and really hand the keys over to the young fella. The Grizzlies are putting a lot on this kid. You and I both think he's very well equipped to handle it, not only physically, mentally. I go back to their 1st-round game against Marquette in the NCAA tournament. Everybody nationally, this was going to be the first time that they were going to see Ja Morant play, going up against a guy like Marcus Howard. Tons of hype. He was ready to play, but he didn't overdo it. He had a triple-double. He led them to a big win. I think that's just a taste of what we're going to get as he matures.
Well, when you look at this kid, you start talking about players for certain markets. He fits the Memphis market. Memphis is starving for a guy that does what he does. Athletic, excitement, just makes those spectacular plays. And that's the thing that Memphis is going to love about this kid, and he's going to love about Memphis. Memphis is a basketball crazed city, all right? But they love the Grizzlies. But again, when you trade Mike Conley, steady, doesn't do anything with flair, just a very good NBA player. But this kid right here is something special. He's going to bring that excitement. The fans are going to flock the FedEx Forum to watch this kid. And I don't think he's going to disappoint. Yeah, being a young guy, a rookie in the Western Conference at the point guard, when you got to see Steph Curry, Westbrook, that's what you need in Memphis, because you got to be able to go out and get 20, 10, and 10 if you're going to survive in the Western Conference at the point guard position. And I think they got the right guy, because he's going to fit not just the Memphis Grizzlies, but he's going to fit that city. He's that type of kid. They're going to embrace him. He's going to embrace that city. And I think for Memphis, they picked the right guy, because they're going to flock to see this talent. And that's what something they're missing in Memphis right now. They don't have a draw. They don't have a guy that when you wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to see this kid tonight because he's going to do something special.
And he fits today's NBA, wide open, pace and space, speed, agility, three-point shooting. Knock wood, knock glass. If this kid stays healthy, he is a can't-miss all-star prospect, I guarantee it.
A pretty easy move for him as well. Memphis is only about a 3-hour drive from Murray State's campus, right? It's not such a bad thing for Ja Morant. That leads us to the third pick. The Knicks held it, and for once, their fans were happy with their team's pick.
With the third pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select R.J. Barrett from Toronto and Duke University.
R.J. Barrett, I've been doing this for nearly a decade in this building. I've never heard a New York crowd respond like they did when your name was called. How did that feel to get this city so electric?
It feels great. You know, this is the place I wanted to be, and I'm just really thankful to God that I get to come here.
You had been saying that for a long time, that you wanted to play in New York. What was it about this city and the Knicks in particular that made you feel so strongly?
Everything. I mean, just the history of the team, you know, the whole city and how the fans really embrace the team, good or bad. So, you know, that's the place I want to be.
R.J. Barrett was a first-team All-American at Duke, averaged nearly 23 a game. He wants New York. He's got New York. How well equipped is he to handle it?
Well, he's going from the second best player at Duke to the best player for the New York Knicks. So he's going to get a ton of opportunity. And, you know, everybody knows that he is a terrific scorer, though they've questioned the shooting. You know, his ability to play a multitude of ways, his handle in the pick and roll, he's athletic enough to get out in transition and finish. He's going to be a perfect fit as a scorer, which is exactly what the Knicks need. And the question now becomes how they're going to fill out the rest of the roster with their $70 million in cap room.
In my opinion, he was the number 2 player in the draft. Okay, take nothing away from Ja, but if I'm sitting there picking at 2, regardless of need, this kid was the number 1 player in high school pre-Zion Williamson's emergence. He's the number 1 player in his country and Canada. He, as a 16-year-old, competing in the 19 and under, maybe 17, he won a gold medal for Canada, beating the United States in the big moment, had big numbers. I think he had like 38 in the game. He was the best player on the floor. He's going to a big market. So number one. It goes to Duke, number 1. And I think he can handle the moment. Physical, finishes, scores through contact. Yeah, he does need to improve the jump shot a little bit to be able to expand his range. But, you know, the Knicks should be happy with this pick.
And they've got that cap room now to deal with. There is that. You mentioned that.
Well, you got to.
It's good to make the pick, but then you've got to fill out the rest of the roster.
Yeah, you got to use it. That's the key.
Got to use it.